Beautiful morning. There you are. Here we are. And it's a Thursday. I get excited on Thursdays. Looks like this week it's going to rain throughout. But the meteorological agency did tell us to look forward to this. Anyways, welcome aboard. Let's get into the news review. And today we're going to be talking a lot about money matters, an IMF program and all of that. Are you ready? Mapitso, Sebidi, good morning.
Good morning, Benjamin.
Are you looking forward to that?
No, I'm not.
Why not?
What do you mean, why not? I'm not particularly interested in it.
It affects you. It affects your pocket. It affects the fuel you purchase at the pump. It affects everything. It affects your iPhone. It affects your update. It affects everything. It affects the price of your phone case.
It can affect everything, but I'm not interested. Fact remains.
Like you're not shaken?
It's not that I'm not shaken. I'm not interested. So if I'm shaken, that means I'm somewhat interested. But I'm saying that I'm not interested.
So whatever happens, God forbid, if there's an economic meltdown, you'll be interested, right? Because it affects you directly. It will affect. Already, we are seeing inflation at 33.9%, 2.2% gain month on month.
Definitely.
And you're telling me what?
I'm still not interested. You can't force me to be interested. I'm not interested. It's happening. I understand it's happening, but I'm not interested.
This is a hopeless case. Well, interested can have two meanings, right?
Tell me.
So you could be uninterested and disinterested.
Okay.
Uninterested, you're simply not concerned. You are unbothered. It means nothing to you. Disinterested, it means you don't stand to gain anything from a situation for which reason you wouldn't be biased. So you don't have an interest. That's why the politicians would be, because they are politically exposed.
So,
when they go to the bank and all of that, they would. So yes, that is option one.
Yeah,
you're simply unbothered.
Unbothered, yeah.
My bad. I shouldn't have gone down that road.
Oh,
anyway,
it's okay.
But one of my favorite rappers of all time has passed on. Right before we get to Dr. Abu Sakara Foster, and we all know his favorite song, "Gangsta's Paradise."
Yeah.
Shall we do it?
Which part should we do?
So there's always that part that sticks in there. As I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I take a look at my life and realize there's not much left. Because I've been blasting and laughing so long that even my mama thinks that my mind is gone.
It's you reading the lyrics for me.
So of course, I don't remember everything.
Yeah.
But I ain't never crossed a man that didn't deserve it. Me be treated like a punk, that's unheard of.
Money and
I'm gonna miss
power.
this guy.
Power and the money.
Minute after minute, hour after hour.
Yeah.
Charlie, all of these legends are all of a sudden. So my producer is whispering whether I knew him personally. No, we grew up on these guys, and when they die, it hurts. I don't know. I loved DMX. Okay. Grew up on DMX. And there's a pattern. A lot of them are passing so young, apart from those in their 20s and the rest.
Yeah.
We've seen some of those in the US, especially 2 years ago and last year, and even this year. Some of them through gun violence and all of that. But some of those who don't, I don't know whether it's their habits. Sometimes the weed, the coke, the fast life, the drugs, the girls,
the alcohol.
But DMX passed in his 50s. I think it was related to, I don't know whether he OD'd, overdosed. I don't know. We saw what happened to Whitney Houston. Of course, she had a long-standing drug problem. Now there's Coolio at what, 52,
I think. 51, 2.
I think I should check.
Yeah.
But I don't know what is happening. 50s and they're gone.
It's because of the lifestyle, man. You're not sleeping, you're trying to produce music, you're traveling, 3 hours of sleep, drinking alcohol.
You're doing concerts and everyone thinks they own your life.
Everyone thinks they own your life. You don't have a life of your own. So that's what happens, unfortunately.
It's a blow.
Yeah.
But Warren G, I don't know how Warren G will take this.
I mean,
because they were,
He'll be sad. They were friends, man.
Yeah.
They were friends.
I think they were more than friends. They were like brothers.
Yeah. So obviously, it's a sad thing.
Anyway, it is what it is. We too will go someday.
Oh yeah,
and we'll have to render account, like Paul says in the Bible.
Heaven knows we will get there.
Let's get into the papers, Mapitso, shall we? How about you start? Any of your papers you can?
So all of our papers, the finance minister's faces just staring at us.
Why?
Staring.
You're seeing it in all the papers.
All of the papers.
Let me do a quick check of mine. Oh, same.
All of the papers.
Daily Graphic.
Yeah,
Daily Guide.
I checked
Daily
all the papers.
Statesman.
Business Finder, Ghanaian Times, all of them.
What's the finance minister doing in these papers?
So he is restoring macroeconomic stability is our goal. That is what he's saying, Finance Minister. And we're talking about the IMF negotiations. You know, he did address the press yesterday. We'll get into that shortly. And let's strengthen ICC to prevent conflicts around the world. That's according to the president. Stop food waste for people and for the planet. This is International Day of Awareness of Food Loss Waste 2022, and 10 IOCs owe Ghana 2.77 million in rental fees arrears. So let's go to the big story, page 26, that Benjamin is so excited about and so interested in. Let's go to page 26 quickly. 26, where are you? All right, cool. So IMF negotiations, restoring macroeconomic stability is our goal. That's what the finance minister is saying. The government is yet to conclude processes for debt restructuring with the International Monetary Fund. And finance minister said the IMF and the government's team are currently working to update the medium-term macro fiscal framework to inform the designing of the program. Speaking at the press conference in Accra yesterday, he said, and I quote, "We simply have not reached any agreement with the fund on the parameters of any debt operations as we are in process of completing the debt sustainability analysis." Benjamin, I know that you are very interested in it, so would you like to share your thoughts on that? I know you have a lot, so let's go.
A whole lot, actually, but when I get into the Daily Graphic, I'll say more. But, you know, I just see that it's very optimistic, some of what the finance minister says, and that is corroborated by economists that have been spoken to. Yesterday, I listened to some of them. The finance minister says, for example, that he's hoping in about 2 years we can return to the international market, the Eurobond market, among others. You know, we've been shut out of that, partly owing to our debt instability and other factors, fiscal, economic factors that have not inured to the benefit of our economic setup. And he says in 2 years, some are saying, look, even 5 to 7 years, projections, those are the minimum that you're looking at. So is this administration being overly optimistic? Are they facing the reality? Or is it that it's all about giving hope, but is the hope hinged on anything real? In other words, does the hope have legs to stand on? There's also the issue of, he also made mention of the fact, I think he mentioned November 15 for the budget, so that it would reflect, I mean, when there are some agreements, the IMF is in town, it's a 10-day program, they are still, bumping heads, negotiating, trying to map the way forward for our economy. And he talks about November 15, on that day when we're going to have the next, budget statement, of course, leading into 2023. And some have said that that too is overly optimistic. I mean, you've not had an IMF program. You are deliberating with them. It doesn't necessarily mean, though he says, and the president has also re-echoed that look, it's proceeding very well so far. But we've seen in some instances where it started well, not ended so well. Some countries have gone for 2 years trying to get an IMF program, 2 years. Just trying in the process, the pipeline, like we usually say. So some are saying, look, aren't we being a bit too optimistic? And if the cookie crumbles, then what happens to our economy if we don't get what we're looking for from the IMF? But on the other end, you should face it. Kristalina Georgieva, when she interacted with me, said that, look, I am hoping we're going to do everything possible, just to paraphrase, to ensure that Ghana gets a program by end of year. So maybe the finance minister's hopes are hinged on something, but industry watchers are a bit cautious because, Charlie, the way the thing they go, we have to balance. It's a balancing act. And I feel, finally, one important thing, we need to manage the expectation of the people, Ghanaians. And I don't know whether some of these statements in about 2 years will be back on the international market. And, November 15, a hard date for the next budgetary statement, might be in that direction. You may be giving hope, but if you miss anything, then you know what that does. it makes the populace very skeptical, very cynical, if you like.
Yeah.
And that's the other side of it.
All right, well, let's do other stories. Stop food waste for the people and the planet. It's on the front page, but let's go to page 9. This year's theme signifies the entire world needs to be aware of the negativity of food loss and waste on the planet and how we can collectively solve it. As someone who lives alone, I waste a lot of food. Like, I'm very aware that I waste a lot of food because what will happen is that Sunday I'll go to like a shop, not the market, but like I'll go to the shopping center or the supermarket and buy some, potatoes, some vegetables.
Groceries.
Basically. Yeah, but like it's usually with like my vegetables, that's what I'm wasting because I'd buy like, yesterday actually I had to throw out two packets of like pumpkin.
Ooh.
Yeah, because I haven't used them, because I don't cook and I live alone. So there's always this expectation on Sunday that, okay, yeah, I'm going to cook this week. And then work sets in, things happen.
So
and
you end up not cooking.
I end up not cooking and the food goes to waste. So today being International Day of Awareness of Food Loss and Waste, I think we should take a look at that because they say that in Ghana, causes of food losses and waste could be attributed to several reasons, not limited to poor storage facilities after harvest and purchase, and a warm or humid environment promotes insect pests. The lack of fridges affects the cold chain management of products, and the issue of poor packaging, poor transportation, and market conditions. So in conclusion, they say that consumers who decide to shop in bulk, like I would, should be sure of adequate storage facilities in their home, which I do have. But now the problem is that do I use those products that I've bought? No, I don't. So it is kind to share leftovers with the needy. Do not throw them away because it contributes to global warming.
I could introduce you to some, is it food banks or those who they have some soup kitchens and the rest. Maybe you might be able to support them from time to time with some of your leftovers because like with the ants, nothing is left over.
Yeah.
But I have a particular for waste, especially food waste. I do it sometimes myself, but growing up, I've experienced the best of both worlds,
Okay.
where you are living in duplexes and it's the fancy life, and where you're also, you don't know where your next meal is coming from. Luxury at a point, and there's something called ohiabubro, ohiafita. It's like I'm saying, you don't know when your next meal is coming.
Okay.
And life is all a mess. So, and there are many people out there who are still caught in that web, especially in our part of the world. So we all, I think, can do something. Yeah?
And I also
we can do better.
It's an attitude
all
thing, because if you're going to a wedding or a funeral, right? Or even if you're going to a restaurant and they do buffets. So what I've noticed, which is very interesting, is that someone will go to a wedding, they'll ask for jollof rice, right? They'll ask for fried rice, and they'll also ask for spaghetti. All on one plate. And I never used to understand it because it's like that's like 3 cups. White rice, right? Or fried rice or whatever. Jollof rice, okay? And then your spag.
I've seen people down that though.
Huh?
I've seen people take that down. Though I think it's better when maybe worse when it's a buffet because you can take just a little scoop of
So when you go to the
each,
weddings and the funerals, because people are thinking, okay, if I just take a little bit and I come back, the food will be finished. So I'd rather take more. So it's like, greed is then plays a role there. So I'd rather take more. And then you look at their plates. Plates is a mess. It's a mountain. And they don't even finish the food.
Yeah.
And then the food is wasted.
That's one of the places. You brought up a very important subject. And look, this still borders on our economy. You know why? Because apart from that waste and that greed, which also percolates all the way through our system. It's not just sometimes when we talk about the greed, we keep pointing to our political leaders and the technocrats, because the technocrats are also in there. They do quite a lot. But we ourselves too, as individuals, but I think, I said this the other day, I feel 2 of the things that waste the most resources in our country, weddings and funerals.
Funerals, yes.
I don't know, but
funerals,
especially with the youth,
definitely.
there seems to be this trend, my friend tied the knot and they did this and they did that. And especially in the media, she did it. Mapitso is getting, is going to get wed and all of that. So you must up the ante, you must. Whom are you trying to impress? People are paying what? And I'm not trying to destroy anyone's work, but people are paying photographers what? 10,000, 50. I actually saw at a point on Facebook, a photographer came and put there that this couple owes me and and you've been avoiding my call. I mean, it's scandalous. If you can't afford a 15K photographer, go for a 1K photographer. And also be you get it?
Yeah.
You may even know a friend who could. There are some times, I do a lot of paid MC gigs. There are some people, I don't charge them my standard rates. In fact, some people, I may even, on the basis of what I know, how far back we go, 20 years, 25 years, do something for them for free.
Sure.
You know, speak to people, but we tie ourselves down with this, and next thing you know, a month into their marriage, 3 months into their marriage, they're practically, they've hit rock bottom.
Yeah. And I also think it's a whole social media thing. You know, there's so much so much pressure on social media, and it's like, I want to be the best, I want to look the
now
best.
Who they force you? Now
So
who
you know
they
what?
force you?
We also need to be honest that sometimes you look at people and you're like, oh, Charlie, like this looks good. I wish I could have that. So it's a small thing we have, like in our as a person, like you want to be better. You know, you look at someone and like, oh, Charlie, she's really doing well. You know, her wedding's really good. I also want my wedding to be like that.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, you put yourself in
But it's
debt.
step by step. It's step by step.
Yeah.
You may, he's rocking a nice iWatch, and maybe someone gifted it to me. You never know, you know. But we have Dr. Abu Sakara Foster of the National Interest Movement joining the conversation. A very good morning to you, Doc.
How are you?
We are very well. I'm speaking on behalf of Mapitso as well.
Yeah,
You're well, aren't you?
I'm great. I'm fantastic.
By God's grace, I'm well. Thank you.
Right. We hear you might want to, give a take on the matter we're discussing.
Oh, well, I didn't quite catch you from the beginning. So
Right. So we were just talking about weddings and funerals and how wasteful we all can be with them in this country. If we could quantify, Mapitso, just how much we expend on weddings and funerals in a year, and maybe, like you said, how much food goes waste and all of that, it would be interesting. I'm sure it would be staggering.
Yeah.
Quick thoughts on that before we get into other stories?
Well, I think clearly when you look at the fact that we spend so much on events such as weddings and funerals, which are always kind of community celebratory events, but you cannot get anybody to spend money on digging a well in their village or spend money on some kind of constructive public use community project. And I think that itself is really the underlying problem. The fact that money is going to things that are not really very productive, but the things that we do need and the things that we can use and the things that will have a public good, people are not willing to spend money on those. The same attitude where people will build elaborate, fine houses, but if you say, okay, why don't we all together put some trips of gravel on the road and smoothing it out or build some drains? Oh, no, that is government's work. But you're the people who live there. So that shows an underlying problem. And I think we need to address this, because if we don't, then we're not addressing the core of the problem. We're only addressing the symptoms.
Interesting remarks. Mapitso, you started off talking about the finance minister and what he's been saying. So maybe I'll just throw that to Dr. Abu Sakara Foster before you go on with other stories.
I think you should just add the daily graphic.
Okay,
Yeah.
so let me get in there. Doc, so government IMF negotiations, transparent engagement are focused. That's according to Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta. And the Minister of Finance has stated that the government will engage the public transparently on its discussions with the IMF for support. Consequently, a 5-member committee consisting of prominent financial service professionals will lead extensive stakeholder engagements across all key segments of the financial sector, covering banking, asset management, pensions, and insurance. Doc, so there's a whole lot to this. You would look at the teachers' unions and the fact that they are complaining about some agreements that were arrived at that are not being met. You would look at the fact that we've approached the IMF. Our economy is not in the best of health. We've been spoken to about debt restructuring. The IMF says no, you've not got there yet. So many points emanating. I was just making mention to Mapitso before you came through that the finance minister says he is projecting that within 2 years, we should be out of the woods and able to get international funding in, Eurobonds and others. Economists disagree. They say we'd need anything between 5 to 7 years. Again, he talks about our next budget statement, hopefully after an IMF deal is secured, on November 15. Others are saying this too is not practical. What do you think of all this?
Well, the long and short of it is that if you have a systemic problem, you need a systemic solution, not an inferior cosmetic one. And I wish sometimes that, you would have some of the clips which we have spoken about before on the same issue, and simply play those old clips back, because there's nothing more I'm going to say today than what I said the very first time you spoke to me about this issue. This is not the time now to be transparent. The point of transparency was before we went to the IMF. And as I said before, what are you going there for? What is the solution you're going to propose? And as I said before, you have two boxes. The in box is your expenditure. The out box is the money you're going to generate. So the first thing that they were going to ask is, you're spending more money than you earn. Tell us how you are going to cut back. Which areas are you going to cut back? Is it the 1,000 staffers at, Flagstaff House you will cut? Is it the 101 ministers you will cut? Is it the many employment initiatives which were not employment in private sector, but public sector employment, things like NAFCO, all these things that you will cut? Which ones of them are you going to cut? You can't simply say, I'm going to keep all of them, but give me more money because I don't have enough money. That's not how it works. The second part of it is, even if we do give you this money, is this simply going to be used to service debt and pay the deficit of these public sector consumptive investment areas? Or how much more money will go into the private sector in areas of growth, like agriculture, industry, where you are now going to grow more businesses, grow more jobs in the private sector, and then get the taxes that way to pay us? How much of this is going to happen in each area? If you can't answer those questions specifically, of course, they're not going to give you the money.
Well, only time will tell on this economic trajectory. And of course, we can only pray for the very best that because people have said that, look, we need this program, we need this money. And if we don't get it, it's going to be cataclysmic.
Yes.
So we only pray that we're able to get it. Because like I mentioned before you came on, countries have been pursuing packages for about 2 years and have still not got it. But at least we have the assurance of the IMF boss that by close of year, we should have.
Well, let's hope that we do, but still, getting it is not the solution. You see, what we're looking for is just a temporary solution where we get enough money to tide us over, we're able to pay a few salaries and then keep our debt profile going and being serviced. But the real issue is that until we start generating more money than we spend, and the money we borrow, we use it in a way to generate money, it doesn't solve the problem. And how many times have you been to the IMF? And we're going back there again. So if going to the IMF solved the problem would have been solved by now. The real issue and the point of transparency is for us all to sit around the table. And this is what many people asked for. It's not an NPP NDC matter. It is not an admission of failure in the sense that all the failure is your responsibility. It is a collective failure over a long period. So now let's say, look, government costs us more to run than it generates. So how are we going to handle this? If we have priorities, which priorities should we put first? And what are the other areas that we need to address to be able to grow the economy faster so we don't have to keep borrowing? This is the transparency that we need to sit together and make those decisions around fundamental reforms. And that gives us an alternative way out. But if you don't craft an alternative way out, but you just go there to see how you can maintain the status quo, then we're not solving the problem. And this is why some of us are advocating that let's all get around the table. Let's all sit together and discuss. Because at the end of the day, we have to see how we are going to cut the cost of government. And also, we're going to make sure that investment goes in areas of growth. And not only that, but those areas have a much more hospitable atmosphere than they do now. Right now, anybody who has money is not going to put that money in manufacturing or agriculture because the conditions are very hostile. And if that is the case, and if you're not putting money in those areas, how are you going to grow the economy? The other service areas are already stacked up, and much of that money goes out of the country, and they don't create the kind of jobs that add value, which can keep up with the pace of inflation. So this is really the fundamental issue. You keep talking about going to the fundamentals. This is the time to go to the fundamentals.
This is the time to go to the fundamentals. We should go back to the basics and work out our economy all the way from the bottom up. Let's check out two more stories on page 16 and wrap from there with the daily graphic. Security strategy on Galamsey undergoes revision, and that story there will be giving you details of that. In fact, let me just get right into it. The national security strategy adopted to stop the illegal mining in rivers and forest reserves is undergoing revision. The revision will help make the strategy more robust and effective. The Minister of National Security, Albert Kandapa, who made this known to the Daily Graphic in an interview yesterday, said it was imperative for the strategy to be revised considering the current spate of degradation of the country's resources through the activities of illegal miners. And I keep referencing, of course, we've known this for a long time, but my good friend, Kafui Day, at the Ghana Broadcasting Corporation, recently paid a visit to the Pra River. And the water he fetched, I joked, though it's not funny, that it looked like carrot juice. Yeah, it looks very much like carrot juice. Yeah. There's also, don't be swayed by unjustified criticisms. This is what the Chief Justice, Justice Kwesi Enin-Yeboah, is saying. He has urged judges not to be swayed by what he calls unjustified criticisms in the discharge of their duties. Rather, he stressed the need for judges to be firm, resolute, and uphold the rule of law at all times. Of course, his comments come on the back of recent public debate on judicial independence and accusations from former President John Dramani Mahama to the effect that the independence of the judiciary has been compromised. Two stories: security strategy to be revised on Galamsey, and don't be swayed by unjustified criticisms, according to the Chief Justice. Quick reactions?
Well, I think the Galamsey story is just about the biggest story now in Ghana, apart from the economy. And the two are interrelated anyway, because when you have an economy such as this, it encourages people to go direct to dig out the wealth from the ground instead of digging into the ground to plant crops over a longer period. Just yesterday, I was watching a video in which a farmer was bragging about how he had cut down his cocoa to lease the land for Galamsey.
Is that the one? Is that the one who asks planting for food and jobs?
Oh yes.
What has come to me? Is that the one?
That's the one. But what he said, which was more poignant than that, was that he told them that that roofed house over there is the last 2 years of mining, and the minibus over there is the last 2 years of mining, and it fetches me my daily bread. But these mud huts you see are me from when I was a 20-year-old man till today in cocoa. So that, wow, I think, set up a very powerful contrast, which was difficult to argue against. But of course, we'll still debate the issue because a long-term gain is better than a short-term one.
Right.
But the real issue where this Galamsey is concerned is that it's in your face. If people wanted to arrest the kingpins, they would do so without even moving, an inch to go and examine the Galamsey areas. Going to see the Galamsey area, etc., does not solve the problem. The real problem is that the people who are doing it are sitting right opposite you, and you can't do anything about it. You seize the equipment. They've made enough money to go and buy new equipment. So what difference does that make, So I think that is the real political will behind this. Now, it may well be that in the larger scheme of things, people have made up their mind that, look, mining has been going on since Adam. Fine. If that is the case, then levy bring all the gold to one place, make it official, levy it, and use some of that money and set up alternative bodies that go and do the reclamation in the areas that they have been destroying to make sure that they're reclaimed properly. So a percentage of the gold goes back directly through other NGOs or other organizations to do the reclamation because they won't do it themselves. Secondly, you can also make sure that they have in place mechanisms that provide them alternative sources of water, and that money is spent on cleaning that water before it gets into the river. That is the key to the solution. But if we keep addressing other things that are not the solution, then we will see rivers looking like, what do you call it, Milo. So right now, I think we have to be able to tackle the fundamental issues. Let's take a percentage of that money that they are making in gold and invest that money in one, reclamation, and two, treating the water before it gets into the river.
All right, then let's go to the business find now, and the big story is analysis of debt not concluded to warrant today's sustainability talks. That's according to the finance minister. And we also have from the NPA CEO who says demand for petroleum products records 41% increase in 2021. And Energy Minister seeks investors for Ghana's 5 oil blocks in the USA. But very interesting story on page 7 is that all financial institutions to blacklist Momo loan defaulters. That's according to the Bank of Ghana. They have warned mobile money Momo loan defaulters that failure to pay attracts negative repercussions. According to the banking sector regulator, failure to pay Momo loans would adversely affect any chance of obtaining loan facilities from other financial institutions and credit providers in future. Now, they were reacting to reports that some individuals who have acquired loans through Momo platforms have deliberately refused to register their SIM cards in the ongoing National Subscriber Identity Model card registration exercise with the intention of avoiding repayment of the acquired loans, Benjamin. Now, we spoke about this stubborn academy that they were deliberately trying to make sure that they're not going to pay. They're like, okay, if you're going to force us to register our SIM cards, then it's fine. We're not going to register our SIM cards. We will just, and plus we owe Momo anyway, so it's fine. We won't register, just take your money, it's fine. Doc, do you have anything to say about that?
Well, stubborn academy. Well, the key thing is that I think we have to decide what we want. We do want this access for money transfer, etc., that the digital platform has provided to be able to move money about freely. And at the end of the day, how much are they making? Because most of these people are operating out of kiosks. If they were making huge amounts of money, they wouldn't be sitting there. So I think there has to be a give and take situation where maybe you have to reduce the amount of taxes on them to leave them enough incentive to come and pay this willingly, and to create some kind of incentive, because there's so many of them. If you take all of them out of the system, it's like cutting off the nerve endings of your body, and the blood won't get there. And you know what they say about money, sikaya moja, and if blood is not getting there, those parts will die off. And so that's part of the economy that dies off when you take them out of the system. But by the same token, you have to have some amount of incentive for them to be in the system. So I think that it's a balance between the incentive and the punishment. Maybe the punishment is more than the incentive. Maybe you have to adjust it a little bit to give them enough incentive to stay in the system, bearing in mind that they have a public good just by existing.
Sure, Doc. Now, we also have rethinking tourism as a pathway for development. I mean, we've been speaking about tourism for like the past 2 weeks and how these tourist sites, leading to the tourist sites, they have terrible roads, they have terrible toilet facilities. But Ghana President Akufo-Addo is determined to make Ghana the most preferred tourist destination. So how do we do this? Because if the roads are not good, the facilities are not good, how do we make sure that tourism is actually something that people will come down for and will actually make money out of?
And just to add, when you look at countries that are focused on tourism and gleaned the most from them, Cuba, island country, not so endowed. Look at what they've done with their industry. It was conscious.
Yeah.
Dubai in the United Arab Emirates and what they've done. So it is clear what we have to do. But are we doing it? We've had the year of return, beyond the year of return. We've also had the recent one, the Citizens, Global Citizens Festival. Good, but without these, how are we going forward?
Yeah, so what are we doing without all of these third parties as Ghanaians to say that, okay, let's go to Kakum National Park. What is happening? How are we making sure that Kakum National Park is attractive to investors, is attractive to foreigners, is attractive to tourists? Doc, any thoughts?
Well, I'm not an expert in tourism, but I think from a perspective of targeting your clients, there's much to be said here, because I lived in East and Southern Africa for quite a while, and whereas there are different categories of tourists, so you have to target those tourists that you want, and if it is the festivals, etc., that you want to have, those are usually in provincial towns, so the infrastructure is already there to some extent. But if it is in getting involved in livelihoods and off-track beaten areas, maybe you have to target those tourists that actually want to go into areas like that, because they're tented areas in East Africa which are like living in a five-star hotel. There are other tented areas where you walk there and it's like living in the wild. So you have to decide the kind of tourists that you have, the amount of money that you have, and then attract those people who maybe in the beginning would like the areas in a certain way, which are not too far developed. And then as you get more money, you develop the areas where, they attract a different kind of tourists. So that's the first thing. The next thing, obviously, is that not every area has the same resources. For example, I would say we can't compete with certain areas in terms of beaches because, one, naturally, our shelf is very deep. It's not a shallow one which you can walk out to the river, to the sea, 1 mile into the sea. It falls very rapidly.
Yeah.
And then our beach borders are very narrow. They're not wide beaches. So maybe you should be focusing on another kind of tourist. Maybe he wants to walk in the savannah. Maybe he wants to walk in the forest. And you don't build roads into the forest. So those kinds of people, I think you need to target them more clearly. And one of the things that really I think we haven't looked at is that when people come here because of the social, cultural, historical aspect of slavery, they go to the Cape Coast, they go to the dungeons. But the dungeons were only the last place. If you've left Accra for years and you now want to visit Accra, you don't go to the airport. The airport is where you arrive.
Yeah.
There were trails of tears before these people got to those beaches. Some of those trails of tears go along paths where people either ate food in certain particular places or washed in certain particular places. There may be some people who actually want to experience walking along those trails.
Hiking.
And experiencing that. But because they haven't knitted this into the social and cultural fabric of the society so that the people there can accompany them and take part in this activity.
Right.
They've just left it as a dead thing where you see it and now you've seen it, it's finished. But what about doing it? What about living it? So those are other aspects that we need to think about. And those don't require so much infrastructure. In fact, what they need is the people there to be as they are and for the people coming to live with them and
Yeah.
experience that life with them so that they see it. So I think we need to tweak the tourism thing. And the other aspect of it now is looking at impact of climate change and the ecology and how to build that into the tourism. There's significant funds for carbon sequestration, that is creating carbon sinks, that the industrialized countries have rightfully put some money aside for that because they refuse to change their way of doing things.
Right.
So instead they want to spend money on it and hoping that other countries elsewhere who don't have the amount of sequestration, the amount of emissions that they do, can find ways of creating more sinks so that, they use it to balance their books. We should look at how we link those funds to developing this kind of tourism
Right.
so that, we're killing two birds with one stone. I think that there are many ideas around there that we can work with.
Well, we'll have to draw the curtains here. The only top up, just the headlines from the Daily Guide. But on the back of that, intra-tourism too is something we really, tourism by Ghanaians, locally.
Yeah.
How many people have been here, been there? There are so many places we don't go to. But the Daily Guide, support Ghana to industrialize, that's according to Trades Minister Alan Chamating, and fossil fuels to remain in short term, that's according to Dr. Mahamudu Bawumia. Well, on that note, we'll just call it, I think there was but we'll leave that for later. Samuel Kojo Brace comes to mind. Okay. Shall you initiate us into sports?
I think
usher us right into sports.
I did.
No, I'd like you to do it.
No. Today, Dr. Wisakara Foster, thank you so much for joining us. And in our fantastic shades of green.
Yes.
Yeah, that's it for the newspaper review. Up next is sports.